Hey there guys, over the last week or so I've been working with a device that Verizon sent to me, as I tend to do on a regular basis. However, this one's a little bit different than the normal ones I would receive from them. This is the Samsung Galaxy camera. Now, if you're not familiar with this device, there has been a ton of coverage on it over on XDAs. However, in terms of specifications, this is essentially, and I'm saying this sort of on a loose basis, the international Samsung Galaxy S3 with a camera strapped to the back of it. So you've got the Exynos 4412 quad-core 1.4 gigahertz processor, 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigs of built-in storage, but instead of the traditional 8 megapixel rear-facing camera, you get a 16 megapixel sensor with a 21 times Samsung optical zoom lens on the back that's capable of doing up to f2.8 at the widest setting. Whereas traditionally with a cell phone, you end up with a cell phone lens, which is not good. And you do have some of the traditional camera controls like zoom and photo button and things like that. So it actually looks and feels like a camera, but it's got, like I said, essentially Galaxy S3 strapped to the back of it. So you have full-on Android once it decides to come up. There we go, we've got Android Jelly Bean 4.1 running on top of it. Looking around the rest of the device, you've got the traditional tripod mount you'd expect on a normal point-and-shoot camera. You have a flash button here on the side because it's not always there and open. You have USB and a 3.5mm headphone jack that's also able to be used as a mic jack. Lanyard came attached to it. I'm not a lanyard person, but whatever. Down here at the bottom you have a mini, or I think it's mini HDMI connection. It's not the teeny tiny one, it's a smaller one, but it's not full HDMI. You've also got the battery, SIM card, micro SD down all here. Like I said, power button on top and the camera button on the top, and this nice handy dandy little camera grip thing. Also has at the very least one microphone on the top and a speaker grill on the side. Now this is not going to go the way that the normal reviews would go from me, where I'll talk about performance and playing games and whatever else. I'm primarily going to focus on this as a camera because that's what it is, it's a camera. Now in terms of traditional performance on a camera, what do you expect? Well, I have here Canon point-and-shoot camera. This is what I think of when I think of a traditional camera. Cheap, $150 camera, relatively cheap. And when I go to turn it on, power button, I'm ready to go. That was about a second, maybe a second and a half total time, and I'm ready to start taking photos and video. I hate to say it, but in terms of the Galaxy camera, not quite so much. We'll just sit here and do it on camera. This is in a standby state, it's in the camera state, so you have to actually leave it in that state. If you have it in the home screen, it's going to come back to the home screen. So if I just go ahead and hit the standby button now, there we go. It was maybe 2 seconds, maybe 2.5. On average though, when you go to pick it up, just like this one, where I turned it off, if I turn it back on right now, boom, second and a half, I'm ready to go again. With this one, if I pick it up in a half an hour, it's probably going to take on the order of about 6 to 7 seconds to actually get up and going. I'm not sure what the difference is, if it goes into a deep sleep mode or what, but what I found more often than not is if I leave it sitting for more than a couple of hours, if I leave it for, the entire day while I go to work, for example, if I come home and turn it on, it, instead of going into a deep sleep, it goes into almost, actually, an entirely powered down mode. So you have to go through the full startup process, which is about a minute and a half process to get it from hit the power button to you're ready to take a photo. That's not generally a huge deal, but if you're using this as your family camera on vacation or something, and oh look, your kid's doing something cute, you hit the button, now you can take a photo. It's one of those things. It's not as responsive as I really thought it would be with a quad-core processor in it. And of course it does have to push out that big lens, and it has to, I don't know, I'm kind of making excuses for it at that point. And honestly, the same sort of stuff can be seen from the zoom lens. If you just watch here, I'm going to zoom in, and now it's done zooming. Zoom out, and now it's done zooming out. Not exactly slow, not the slowest thing I've ever seen or anything. This one definitely, like I said, has it's a lower end point and shoot, but zooming in, let's see if there we go. Zooming in is just a matter of zoomed in, and I went too far, I think. This one does not have a digital zoom, this does, and zoomed out. So I don't know, I think that might be a product of it having a 21 times optical zoom. That does make a big difference. I'm nitpicking at this point really, but I'm just talking in terms of using this as a point and shoot, like a real carry it with you, use this for run and gun photography. it's a little bit sluggish for that. I hate to say that because it is a very nice, very big screen camera with some excellent capabilities. And actually, that's one thing I did not mention. As you can see here, the entire back of the device is a 4.3-inch 1280 by 720p display. I always say it that way, 1280 by 720 display. It's a 720p display. And when you turn it on, like I see here, you've got the full screen being used. You have the bars on the side because I set it not to do 16 by 9 photos, because why would you do that? But when you hit the home button, it does leave the camera mode and take you into full-on Android, where you can browse through your apps and you can do all of that other fun sorts of stuff that you do in Android. You can even check your email on the device using, like I said, the built-in 4G that comes on the device. Now, in terms of the photo and video quality, as I was taking the photos, most of them looked really, really good, especially if I used the flash, but the more I looked at them, after the fact especially, the more they were kind of hit and miss. When I was using the flash, if you're too close to the subject, and with a 23mm at the widest lens, you can get really close to somebody. So from this angle, I can, let's just say I turn it on, have to go back into the camera mode again because I was in the Android mode. So at this angle, I can get a photo of myself, and if I tell it to use the flash, it's not going to because of my lighting, but if I had told it to actually use the flash and I was in a place where I didn't have big bright lights pointed at me, it's kind of overexposed. It's just like you would expect out of a point and shoot, and And if you're too far away because you have this really long zoom lens, it tries to flash, and the flash is not going to hit that far away. I've actually got a photo from my mantle where I was sitting across the room. I took a photo, the flash went off, and the picture came out completely underexposed because it was trying to use that flash and couldn't hit that. And there were also quite a few photos that, without the flash on, turned out considerably grainy, even though the light in the room was really not that bad. And keep in mind, I was using this primarily in auto mode. There are a ton of different smart modes you can use for things like best shot and capturing a smile and continuous photos and all sorts of other things like that. Maybe getting like the best colors and the best faces and all that. And that's nice and interesting and something you don't see on a lot of point-and-shoot cameras. You see them on some of the mid-range to higher-end ones, but it's something I did not find myself using because they're all sort of very situation specific. So I spend a lot of time in the auto mode or the completely, not completely manual, but the expert mode, the advanced mode, where you can go into the traditional PASM program, auto, shutter priority, aperture priority, and set things by hand. And that was kind of interesting to be able to do. You can go into a full manual mode where you set everything by hand, and that's very handy and very useful. But again, the photos, it's still using a cell phone sensor pretty much, so it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible. It was more usable than some cell phone cameras I've seen, but at the same time, when you're looking at the price point of the device, it's a little bit much for the photos you're getting out of it. If you're taking all your photos outdoors, that's one thing, but if you're taking mixed photos indoors and out and you're not using the flash all the time, it's going to be a little disappointing, and you're not going to know it until you get the photos out of the camera. And honestly, the same thing can be said for video. I took a couple of short videos without the lights on overhead and just, average daylight pouring in through the windows, and they were not great. And actually, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera on. I'm going to see if I can get it to do video while I'm sitting here. Yeah, we're recording now. So now I'm actually recording on two cameras at the same time, and I'm going to see if I can sync these things up in post and maybe replace the video with the video from that. Just so you can sort of get a feel for what the 1080p video looks and sounds like compared to my normal, I'm in front of the camera. This is sort of how things should look and feel normally, I guess. So that was a very interesting experiment. You do have different video modes you can go into, different resolutions and whatnot. I tend to stick to 1080p because it'll do it, why not? But that does lead to an interesting point. When you're done taking photos and you want to look at them on the camera, you hit the little gallery button, and then you wait. The first time I did it, right after I finished filming, it took 5 seconds, 7 seconds before it would actually pull it up. And again, quad-core processor, you wouldn't think that it should take that long, but again, maybe I'm complaining over nothing there. Now, in terms of the battery, it says on the website that in actual use you're going to get about 2 hours of battery life out of it and so much standby time. It's really not worth measuring standby time. In terms of a camera, 2 hours is not a bad amount of time to get. In terms of a cell phone, that's not great, but again, this is not really a cell phone. It's pretty close. And actually, being so close to a cell phone is what makes this a really interesting and unique device. Because this has always-on broadband connectivity, you can take photos and immediately share them through Google Plus and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Gmail and whatever else you want to send it to that you use in your connected internet life. But at the same time, because it's not a cell phone, you've got this device that's large and actually kind of heavy. If you really, I mean, just comparing it to any other point and shoot camera, it's pretty bulky. It's a whole lot bulkier than a traditional cell phone. Carrying something like this around, the main benefit you're getting is the fact that it has that 4G connectivity, whereas you probably have a cell phone that has 3G or 4G at this point, and what your cell phone really needs is this. It's that lens. And the lens itself, it's not a bad lens. It's not the best lens on the market or anything. I know I've seen some other devices from, I think Nokia made one for, it was, I think, a Windows phone that had a Carl Zeiss lens on it. Very nice, very well made lens. I don't know if it does zoom or not, but either way, a lens on top of the device doesn't really matter if it has zoom or not. It's nice to have, but not 100% necessary. The optical stabilization that's built into this lens does make it very handy if you're zoomed in to 21 times zoom, but I don't know. I'm conflicted about it because I like the quality out of a lot of the photos I got out of it. I like the quality of the video. I've seen almost equally good video and photos out of some cell phones at this point, whereas if they just had a better lens on them instead of having a whole device that is not a phone but will do internet-connected things, it seems to make more sense to put out a full phone device that just has a lens on it and not give you this sort of odd hybrid device that is extremely expensive, that will do everything that you need it to do, but you still have to carry a separate device to do your phone calls on. Now that said, if you're the kind of person who does not do phone calling and you really like photography, entry-level photography, and internet-connected things, so like sharing things to social networks as soon as it happens, this kind of thing would be great for conferences, for things like that. I tried, actually the reason I have this is I tried to get it for CES because it would have been very handy to walk around to a booth, take a snapshot of something, immediately post it to Google+, immediately post it to Twitter or Facebook or wherever. Unfortunately, they did not have it available until this week, so neither here nor there. Didn't really do me any good now. But at the same time, the same sort of effect could be accomplished with a, I don't know, a wireless card. If you had maybe one of those iFi streaming cards, I don't know if you have to have a desktop for that or not. Feel free to comment on that in the section below. And I know this video is getting kind of long, but of course, you could put something like your cell phone camera and get one of those clip-on lenses if they make them for your camera or your cell phone. And most likely, if you have something like the Galaxy S3, there's probably an accessory for that. Of course, if you have the iPhone, there's definitely accessories for that. Anything other than that, probably not, unfortunately. And there really ought to be. There ought to be some sort of a case that has a clip-on lens or just a lens that's sort of a one-size-fits-all. That's neither here nor there again. So, in terms of the device, the photos, the videos, they were okay. The flash was a little bit quirky, was not as useful as it probably should have been, not as consistent as it should have been. If you're farther away from your subject and you zoom in a little bit, does pretty well. If you're right on top of them, you're going to completely blow them out, and if you're far away, it's not going to do any good. The battery life, I didn't really even get to test how long it would work. I let it sit here and record for like 20 minutes the other night, and the battery was not really impacted, I mean, any more than you'd expect, and it just kept right on going, which means that it doesn't have that 10-minute limit that most devices seem to have at this point. But it did say it was going to have like a 23-minute video recording limit, so that's another thing to consider. If you're wanting to record like an hour-long presentation, this may not be able to do it. But again, all in all, the device, interesting. Not something I could see paying $500 or $550 for. This one in particular is the Verizon version. It's $550. You can get, I think, a month-to-month add-on to your account to where it will tie into your 4G connectivity. If you're not on their share anything plans, you're probably going to get tethered into or pulled into that, which is going to, yeah, it's going to be really confusing. The only other option to get it is to go through AT&T, and I think you can get one or the other off contract. So that would be an option, but you're still paying $550, whatever, for this device that you wouldn't have tethered to anything. And at that point, it sort of becomes a wireless-only camera, and It's confusing. I don't know what to think of it. I will say, the week that I've had it, I've found myself not carrying it with me, simply because it is so big, so heavy, not really pocketable. And more often than not, if I take it somewhere, I either throw it on the car seat or I stick it in a backpack and sort of forget it's there. You know, if I'm going to take a picture of something, I'm more inclined to just pull my cell phone camera out and go ahead and use that, instead of pulling out something that's not a cell phone that has connectivity and is bulky to try to work with. But at the end of the day, it really all depends on your needs. If you're the kind of person who doesn't need a cell phone or an additional cell phone and wants a camera that is always connected and always able to get your email and your do your web browsing and post things to the web, and actually comes with built-in video editing software and I think photo editing software, which was kind of limited, and Android comes with those kinds of things as well. Hard to recommend, again, because most people are going to have a device that would do things similarly and just not have quite as nice a sensor and lens. So at the end of the day, I think it is sort of really up to you, your preferences, your needs. As for me, I'm not about to drop $500 on a device that will give me this much more functionality than what I have out of my cell phone camera and my point and shoot. If I'm going to carry two devices anyway, I'm going to carry something a little bit smaller that's a little bit faster to use. But if you are interested in something like this, do make sure to run to a Verizon or an AT&T store and try to get your hands on one just to see if it's something that you like, if it's something that fits your style and your needs. Anyway, that's probably all from me for today. I really didn't intend to dog on this device because it is a very nice device. It feels early. It's a first iteration of it, of course, so maybe the next generation will be a little faster, a little smoother performance, a little easier to get in and out of the traditional Android into the camera, and I don't know, maybe just a little different overall. Maybe the next generation cell phones will start incorporating these lenses and sensors instead of trying to make a camera that will not really fit in with most people's needs. But like I said, that's all from me for today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.